May 21st, and it's in the afternoon around 3 o'clock, maybe 3:05 or so. And my name's John Conerva, and I'm a private investigator. And I was actually personally threatened by some parties on the day that Todd Trudeau and Christopher Regan went missing. Now, I don't know if that was the same day as, what's your name, ma'am?
Caroline Mayatek.
Caroline Mayatek from, are we in Caspian?
We're in Caspian.
Caspian Pit. So was it around that day, October 14, 2014, when all that activity was around this Christopher Regan issue?
I'm kind of thinking it was, yes.
Yeah. And you were saying what happened about a pounding?
I was sitting in my recliner one night, and all of a sudden there was a desperate pounding on our door. My sons came down from upstairs. They were also in bed that night. They came down and they said, "Mom, do you hear?" I said, "Yes." I was afraid to answer at first. I went to the door, though, after, thinking about it, because somebody's desperate, I thought. Went to the door and there was nobody there, but we heard movement and sounds in the bushes by the house.
Right. Then you said something about you thought you heard a gunshot. Was that the same night?
I thought there was a gunshot after I went to bed that night. I don't know what time it would have been, but I had went up and went to bed. I dozed off. I can't say what time it was, but I heard like a gunshot, and then I heard a man and woman outside the house, which seemed to be Kelly and Jason's house. I didn't know them at the time or who they were, but seeing, they were our neighbors, and we met with them after. I assumed it was their home.
Yeah.
And anyway, that night that I heard the shot, man and woman came out of that house, and there was a car with headlights on. And the woman was saying something. They were kind of bustling around like they were anxious to get out of there. And the man said, "Let's hurry and get the hell out of here." And the car backed off. It backed up. It didn't come around by our house. It backed off down the street.
Did you say you saw a cop car that night too?
Then a policeman came through the alley.
After that?
Not long after that, pounding on the door.
Did you guys call the police that night, or?
My sons went outside, and I think they talked to him.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, they said they had talked to him. You'd have to ask Todd about that.
Right.
I didn't come out myself, but they said the police went down the alley.
Right.
So there must have been a reason for them to be here at that particular time.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. You were talking about then later befriending them.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. How were they as people?
First of all, I think they met Jason down by the pit. He was fishing. And I happened to look out the window one day, and Todd was talking to him. He was talking to the boys. Then I went to town another day. I don't know what date it was. Came back, and Kelly and Jason were leaving out our back door. And I said hi. I told her who I was, and she told me her name. And I said, "Well, come back someday when I'm home. I'd like to find out more about you." And she said, "We'll do that."
Yeah.
And after a while, they started coming over. I can't tell you how many times, but pretty often. I went shopping with Kelly in my car. Jason was also with her, sitting in the back seat of my car. It was harmless.
Yeah.
They talked normal like anybody else. I really liked them too.
Yeah.
When they were in my home, they had a lot of respect for me and for the boys. They did not swear or cuss or anything like that. We had them for Thanksgiving dinner. We had them for Christmas dinner. They stayed and played dice and cards with us. And talked like normal people.
They didn't seem violent at all, did they?
No, never seemed violent. Very, very calm.
Yeah.
And I picked her up at therapy a few times in my car. I took her to St. Vinny's a few times in my car. When I went shopping, Jason was really manly. He'd take my groceries out, carry them in for me.
Uh-huh.
They paid me
Uh-huh.
for my gas and never ever acted like they would harm me in any way. I had a lot of trust in them, good people.
Yeah. Nice, nice. So then, you had mentioned that that you were married to a Iron River police officer.
Yes, I was.
Yeah. Uh, can you tell me any situations that might have been traumatic?
Oh yes. When he become a policeman, he become kind of violent with me and the children, and he was like he'd bring police uniforms home for me to sew and from other policemen even, and I'd tailor them, and sew different things on them. He wanted everything just perfect on his uniform.
Uh-huh.
And said he got him everything he asked for, little tiny badges for his suits, the bigger badge for his coat, the name tags,
Uh-huh.
and everything just so he'd be perfect looking.
Yeah.
He was a nice looking policeman. He looked like he should have been in the movies. He was wanted to be that perfect.
Right, right.
Kind of in love with himself.
Yeah.
So then they called for a meter maid. They had a test for meter maids.
Uh-huh.
And I went down there with this one woman. I don't know if I can mention her name or not, but we took the test together.
Yeah.
She got the job.
Right.
I didn't. They said that I had everything right on my test, but she had more done than I did. And they hired her. Later on, I talked to a member of the commission. I worked with his wife at the nursing home, and she said that David told the city management he did not want his wife hired on the city. So I didn't get hired.
That was your husband?
Yes.
What was his name? David?
David Saylor.
Okay.
So after that, Dave kept getting to the point where he was actually being mean to me where he wasn't before.
Yeah.
And he was more demanding about different things. And I thought, wow, what a change. This man's never asked me to do these things before. And why is he changing so much now?
Yeah.
And I was kind of naive. I put all my trust in him. He was the father of my children, and I loved him very much. But things getting different and different right along, and it's quite a story. Then he kept telling me to go down to Wisconsin to my relatives. He would never let me go that many times before to visit them all the time. While I was gone, I assumed he was seeing his meter maid.
Right.
And he would call her names and everything to put me off.
Yeah.
And after a while I found out he was actually meeting her.
Yeah.
And they hired him so they could take him off the meters so he could do more patrolling.
Right.
But he continued going with her to empty the meters.
Right.
So it didn't look like they needed him to do much more patrolling because he was still helping her.
Right.
He'd meet with her real often for lunch.
Yeah. Think he was having an affair?
I thought he was having an affair. I had the feeling he was having an affair, which I never felt before. They kept getting closer and closer, though.
Yeah.
He was going to her house. The kids were calling him uncle. My son Todd was, about 4 years old.
Yeah.
He'd take Todd downtown, and Todd would come home and say, Mama, Daddy told me to tell that woman to call her Mama. Things like that, and everything was changing. It was getting worse and worse. And at one time, I came back from a family, and Dave was down to his mother's. And he left. Didn't come home all night. Came another night he came home full uniform. He had different marks on his suit, leaves, and other signs that I don't really like to discuss.
Yeah.
Which told me he had been out all night somewhere. Must have been rolling in the leaves or something.
Yeah.
And my children were downstairs at the time, and he said something about, you're not going to have your daddy too long. Your mom's going to leave your dad. Like that, and I had no intention to leave him.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, just strange things. I can't give you, know, in detail one date after the other.
So then you had mentioned that he pulled a gun on you.
He came home one night. Well, before that, though, I had been down, my families came home, and he was dressing to go to work. Another policeman, Mr. Bazanza, was to pick him up that day in the police car. Dave was choking me. I almost felt like death. I couldn't breathe anymore. My eyes felt like they're bugging out of my head. The police car pulled up, and he left with that police car. I fell on the floor, and seeing movies of people choking, where they tell you to keep coughing, I coughed and coughed real hard, which helped me. And yes, he almost choked me to death. And my little dog was even nipping at his heels while he was doing that. My kids were all sitting on a couch and crying, you know, and it's something they didn't dare to do to their father when he was being mean, is to cry. So they kind of muffled their tears and stuff. Okay, he left, and that's when he came home the next morning, all full of leaves and signs on his uniform pants and stuff, where I knew that he was not doing anything right. Then he'd lie to me occasionally, saying he was going up by the falls. He was a Iron River policeman, and I had to wonder, you know, I'm young and naive, and I'm home all the time with my kids. I'm wondering, why was Dave up to the falls? What falls is so close to Iron River that him and the state cops would be up in the falls watching fish come over? And I called one of the state cops one day. I don't remember what his name was. I don't think I've even asked him, and I asked him if it was true. And he said, no, we do not go up to the falls with your husband watching fish come over. You know, he said, can you tell me what falls? He said, no, I can't, because I don't know any around here, you know.
Right.
And why would he be out of his jurisdiction going to some falls and watching fish when he's supposed to be patrolling or on duty that night? So that kind of made him mad when I brought it up to him. That's when he started choking me. So it went on. After a while, I knew they were having an affair. He let me know that. He even asked me, you know, he said, I think I want a divorce and stuff like that. And then occasionally he'd come back and he'd act okay, and pretty soon he was back on his whatever. And he said to me, he said, why don't you go to Milwaukee and get a job, go stay with your brother? I'll keep 3 of the children here, and you take 3 with you, and I will settle down. I will not see her no more. And when you find a job down there and you get established, I will come down there, and I will try to get a job as a Milwaukee policeman. So I trusted that he would change and that would all happen. So I worked for a few months, and then Labor Day was coming up. I called my daughter and I said, Star, I'm coming home for Labor Day. And she said, when you called me before, Mom, and told me that you were coming home for Labor Day, Dad said if you called again to tell you not to come home but to send money. But it sounded suspicious to me, so I did get on the bus and I came home. My children were down at his mother's house. He was on duty. His, whatever you call it, girlfriend, I guess, Lucille, was at home. So I went down to the station. I waited for him that night. I got off the bus. I wanted to take the Scout. We had an International Scout. And I know he didn't need it because he could get a ride, you know, or call me. So I took the Scout, went down to his mother's, picked up my children, went down by her house. She was home. She had her hair set. She was ready to go out that night. Dave would get off duty, and I think they were ready to go out somewhere. And she came up to the car. You know, I honked the horn, so she must figure it was him getting off early. She came out by the car, and I said, I know about you and my husband. And I said, Dave asked me for a divorce tonight again. And I said, you know, why don't you come down to the station with me? And I said, let the better woman win. I said, he can pick you or me. I said, and if he chooses you, I'll go. Then she started arguing with me. And she went in her house after anyway. I went back down to the station, confronted him again. And I did take our international scout, took my children, and I headed for Milwaukee, back by my brother. So things were getting hard down there. My brother had like about 6, 7 kids of his own. And I don't know, I just felt like I better come home, talk to my mother-in-law. And she said, you'd be better off coming home and going on welfare, you know. So I come home. He come out to the house one night and came in the house. Her name was Lucille. I called her everything but a lady. But when I mentioned Lulu, when I said Lulu, he threw me on the floor, pinned me down, took his gun, put it in my forehead, and held it there. And when I moved my head, it went off, and it had lead burn all around my throat. And one of the policemen came to the house after, and he says to me, oh, he said, that's only powder burn. But yet I learned from a state cop that it was lead burn. And anyway, I had moved my head in time. It went off, you know.
Did it go through the floor?
It went through the floor. The state police come out, and they put a scope down there. I was told that it would have had a little hole in front of my head, and the back would have been blown out. Okay, after he did that, I got up from the floor, and he tackled me again, threw me to the floor, put the gun by my ribs, and I said, okay, go ahead, shoot, if she means that much to you. But once I'm dead, you won't have her either. My son Todd was sitting on a chair at the time. He's only 4 years old. And I went upstairs. He squealed, and he ran upstairs by my daughter, slapped her across the face, and said, Star, wake up, Daddy shot Mama. Then when I got up and went in the kitchen with him, he grabbed me and he said, I'm sorry. He hugged me, he kissed me, and then he spit in my face.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Then he left. And after that, I went up by my children upstairs. And Todd says, oh, thank you, God. You brought my mama back.
Yeah.
So,
wow. That's one heck of a story.
Yeah, he was very violent at the time.
Yeah, but he passed away now, right?
He took his own life.
Oh, he's committed suicide.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Well, there's healing. God can heal you. So we'll just pray.
Yeah.
Believe God. Thank you.
You're welcome.